I want to welcome you to session 6 in our Leadership in the New Testament series. And as we begin this session, I want to remind you of kind of the big picture down to the specific session. So the big picture is we are committed to becoming the kind of leaders described in Scripture. So that means Christ-centered, connected, community impacting. The way that Jesus goes about building leaders is through relationship. As we spend time with Him, we become more like Him. We talked early on about that peripatetic school, the walking with the teacher. So as we read of the life of Jesus, as we have our personal board of directors, our personal mentors, then one relationship at a time, our leadership is developing. But then 2 sessions ago, we started a 3-part series on the communication sensation. We're looking at what makes great communicators. We noted in that first section that great communicators are patient communicators. In the last session we just did, we looked at great communicators are humble communicators. Now in this session, we're going to look at something extremely important, and it's a little unusual. Great communicators are empathetic communicators. Now let me explain what I mean. Sympathy has been defined as feeling for someone. Empathy has been defined as feeling with someone. You can feel for someone that you've never met, that you don't know at all. But to feel with someone means you got to get to know them. It means that you have to build a relationship with them, and leadership is relationship. All leadership, true leadership transformation comes through a relationship of one form or another. So building those relationships is extremely important. Communication is essential. Jesus testifies to this. His brother James in the book of James testifies to this. We know that patient, humble communication, characterized by understanding and clarity and humility, can make all the difference in the world. Now, when we're talking about communication, we're talking about building relationships, and this means we got to communicate the right way. So some communication causes barriers. Some communication breaks barriers down. We're going to discuss this, and so look in your Bibles at Ephesians, the book of Ephesians, chapter 4, and let's begin in Ephesians 4 and begin in verse 25. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we're all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Now, anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those who have a need. Now, look at verse 29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Now, verse 29 is where we're going to focus. He said, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. In the original language, this literally means sewage. Don't let any sewage talk come out of your mouth. But now, what would sewage talk mean? So someone might say, well, unwholesome talk means no cussing and don't tell jokes where there has to be some inappropriate punchline. Well, I agree with that, and Ephesians 5, verses 1 through 4 would also, verify that. But it's so much more. Unwholesome talk means talk that tears people down. So, wholesome talk is talk that builds people up and benefits other people and creates connections. Well, this fits right in with what the writer James said when he talked about the kind of communication that's quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. These 2 passages overlap each other. So the wisdom that God calls us to is this: have the kind of empathetic communication that demonstrates that we care about others, that we want to know them, and we want what's best for them. We're communicating to build them up. Now, one of the wealthiest men in American history was Andrew Carnegie. He was a super wealthy industrialist. He was asked this question: How did you become so rich? This was his reply: I make a practice of making the people who work for me rich. You see, Andrew Carnegie understood that if he built up the people that worked for him, then a natural byproduct would be the upbuilding of his own life. So, how do we build these empathetic connections? How do we get to know other people so that we're feeling with them and interacting in their lives? I'm going to give you 7 phrases that make all relationships better. 7 phrases that make all relationships better. So get ready to take these down, and let's start with the first one. The first one is introductory phrases. This is just how you get to know people. Sociologists suggest that if you live in the Western world, so Europe, America, and so on, if you live in the Western world and you live in a city or near a city, you could meet up to 50,000 individuals in your lifetime. Anywhere between 20 and 50,000. You think, oh, there's no way. Well, think about it. The person at the pharmacy, the person at the checkout counter, the person at the bank, the person at the local garage, people in your school, people on a team, classmates. So if you think about it, over the course of your life, you could easily meet that many people. But how do you get to know them? Well, there's some phrases that are good introductory phrases. The first and best introductory phrase is this: with a firm handshake, looking someone in the eye, say to them, hello, my name is, and then introduce yourself. It is an honor to meet you. So if I was doing it and I was meeting you, I'd put out my hand, shake your hand, look you in the eye, and say, hello, my name is Don McLaughlin, and it is an honor to meet you. Now, if it's a little bit more, not so formal, but a more simple a conversation with a less formal meeting, you might change it slightly to say something like, hey, my name is Don McLaughlin, and it's great to meet you. But what you're articulating is the handshake, the eye contact, multisensory communication. You're communicating who you are, but that it is an honor to meet them. These are introductory phrases. So, experts in all fields agree, keep it simple, straightforward, and upbeat. Now let's go to the second kind of phrase. These are compatibility phrases. So we're meeting these 50,000 people in our lifetime, but we're not going to work with them all. We're not going to participate on a team with all of them. They're not going to be in our family. So some people are going to take a step further beyond introduction. So we're looking for compatibility. So an example of a compatibility phrase to explore compatibility would be something like saying to someone, so what are some of the coolest experiences you've had in your life? And then they can think about their life and tell you a little bit about themselves. If it's like someone older than you or a mentor, you might ask something like this: what are some of the most defining experiences in your career? Okay, so one is just what are some of the coolest experiences you've had. Another one is what are some of the most defining experiences you've had in your career. If it's even more general, you might say something like, what is your favorite holiday during the year and how did it become special to you? Now what you're going to discover through their answers is compatibility. So I might ask somebody something like, well, so what are some of the defining experiences in your career? And this just happened recently, and someone said, well, I started a construction company and, well, I grew up in a construction company. So there's a point of compatibility. Somebody else might say, well, what are some of the coolest experiences that you've had in your life? And somebody says, oh man, when I learned to do such and such a trick on a skateboard, or when I did this mountain biking experience. Well, if that's something you also have done, you might think, well, there's a place of compatibility. So a compatibility phrase is just something that helps someone tell a little bit about their life so you can discover compatibility. Now, a third kind of phrase is called connecting phrases. This is the next step. Once you've found compatibility, Then the next thing is to connect. This is connecting to see if you could do some greater things together. So one day, when I was with our church family, I met this guy for the first time. So what do? I walk up and I say, hey, my name is Don McLaughlin. It's great to meet you. This guy, of course, shook my hand and said, hey, my name is Mark, and it's great to meet you. And so then, compatibility, I said, well, hey, Mark, what brought you here today? He said, oh, I've got a daughter. I'm really hoping the best, to help her grow up in church, da-da-da-da. This is our first Sunday. And I was like, well, that's cool. I said, so do you live around here? And he said, yeah, I live over. And he told me where he lives, over in the Peachtree Corners area of Atlanta. I don't live very far from there. And I thought that was cool. And I said, well, which way do you get here? You see, these are all compatibility phrases. He said, well, today we had to take the bus. I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, my truck got stolen. Whoa. And I said, so what happened? He said, well, I only had liability insurance on it, so now I don't have transportation. I thought about it for a minute and I said, do you like to work on cars? He said, I love it. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, in fact, I've been a mechanic. I said, you're kidding me. I said, I love that as well. I said, hey, I know someone who has a truck that runs fine, but it was in a wreck. If you were interested in it, maybe the three of us could rebuild that truck. You pay for the parts, and then when we're done, we'll give you the truck. He was like, are you kidding me? That is an answer to prayer. We set it up. We came over to my garage. We rebuilt this Jeep together and gave Mark the truck, and he drove that truck for several years. Now notice what happened. Introduction, right, to compatibility, and then what? Connecting phrases. Moving from compatibility to a project we could connect on. I want to give you what is the most important connecting phrase of all. This is the most important connecting phrase you'll ever use. So I want you to write it down. It's just 3 words, but it's the most important one of all. Tell me more. These are the 3 most important connecting words you will ever use. You can use them in nearly any situation. If it's just getting to know someone, tell me more. Hey, you're in the band? Yep, well, tell me more. Hey, well, you lived in such and such a town? Yep, tell me more. It can also work even if there's tension in a relationship, like the last session we talked about. Tell me more. So as what I was doing with Mark was each question allowed him to tell me more. Well, while we were rebuilding that Jeep, I must have used the phrase tell me more 15 or 20 times. Because he would start to tell me about his family. Tell me more. Start to tell me about his daughter. Tell me more. His wife had divorced him, and it was extremely painful. And because of the choices she had made, he had full custody of his daughter. So I just said to him, well, tell me more about raising a teenage daughter as a single dad. So he did. Then he told me about his parents. Well, tell me more. So over time, we were connecting through the simple phrase, tell me more. This is essential for the rest of your life, the 3 most important connecting words you'll use. Now, I also want to share something a little humorous, but I hope you'll take it the right way. Some of us have what I call CADD. CADD. You say, well, I've heard of ADD. What is CADD? CADD is conversation attention deficit disorder. You see, for some of us, when we're in a conversation, we don't stay focused. People are talking to us, but we are easily distracted. Anything can distract us. And that makes a conversation very unsuccessful, especially if you're in an interview or something like that. This is what I'm, kind of in a little bit of a humorous way calling CADD. But I want you to think about it. If you can't stay focused in an important conversation, that is going to hamper your professional life. It's going to hamper your relationship life. So you got to get past it. The words tell me more can help you overcome it. As you're listening to someone and you keep saying tell me more, it shows interest and it keeps you focused. So these are connecting phrases. Now let's look at the 4th kind of phrase that helps relationships. Interdependence phrases. Interdependence phrases are how you build connectivity into teamwork. So you introduce to someone, you explore compatibility, you make a connection, but now you're moving to teamwork, and these are interdependence phrases. So an interdependence phrase, a really good interdependence phrase could be something like this. I admire you because, or I was impressed when you did such and such. The idea is you are articulating to someone, I saw what you did, I noticed your gifts, and I value those gifts. So interdependency can be something like, I was really impressed with the way that you organized the winter coat drive for the homeless. Or I was really impressed with how you handled that argument that happened among our friends, and you brought peace, or whatever. You're noting a gift and you're demonstrating value in the gift. But an interdependence phrase also says, and I would like to see what we could do with this. Now, I want to tell you a really cool story. In fact, I want you to Google this. I want you to Google a mountain climber named Erik Weihenmayer. His last name is spelled Weihenmayer, Erik Weihenmayer. Now, you may already know about Erik Weihenmayer, but I want you to know about him if you don't. On May 25th of 2001, when he was 32 years old, he climbed to the top of Mount Everest. He summited Mount Everest. There's more to the story. Erik Weihenmayer led the largest party in history to summit the top of Mount Everest. He had the oldest climber on his team, a 64-year-old that climbed Mount Everest. He has climbed the 7 tallest mountains on each continent in the world. He has climbed all of the mountains in Colorado that are over 14,000 feet, called the 14ers. He was actually married on Mount Kilimanjaro at 13,000 feet. In 2014, he kayaked over 200 miles through the rapids of the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. And I haven't mentioned yet that Erik Weihenmayer is blind. Yes, he was born with a retina disease and he went blind at the age of 13. Now, I don't know how you would feel about getting a call from a blind mountain climber who wants you to follow him to the top of Mount Everest or kayak with him down the Colorado River. But see, what Erik Weihenmayer shares in a book he wrote called The Adversity Advantage is he said, you have to understand, in my life, everything is teamwork. For me to go to the grocery store is teamwork. For me to do anything requires interdependence. Anything. So all of my leadership, everything I do is teamwork. And that is how he succeeded in leading the team up Mount Everest. So interdependence says, I've noticed your gifts, I'm impressed and I admire them and I value them, and I want to do something in the future together because your gifts are different than mine. Erik Weihenmayer had to have people on his team who could do things that he couldn't do, and that allowed him to do the unique things he could do. The next kind of phrase is extremely important. This is the fifth, and it's called growing through the challenges phrases. Now, these are the phrases that we use when we have to confront someone or walk our team through a strong disagreement. So sometimes there's a problem on a team or a problem with friends, a problem with family, and we've got to walk people through this. This is when you're leading with relationships. So when something like this has come about and someone has maybe accused you, someone has kind of lost their temper with you, you're hurt, your feelings are hurt, you're not sure how to lead the team, here are some phrases that can help. Growing through the challenges phrases. Number one, you could say something like, thank you for sharing these difficult concerns. It must be very painful and frustrating to feel the way that you feel. Another version of that would be, Thank you for sharing these difficult concerns. It must be painful and frustrating to believe that I don't care or that I could have done these things. I'm really interested in knowing how you came to feel this way. Now, you'll have to practice that, and sincerity is at the heart of it all, but these are phrases that help. Let's say, for instance, that someone thinks you talk behind their back or that you stab them in the back. What if you say something like, it really has to hurt that you think that I talk behind your back or that you think that I don't care enough about you? You might also say, I may not see things exactly as you see them. Can you tell me more? There's our 3 words, and explore together what you think I'm missing. A very simple statement might just be, help me understand. Another thing that we referenced earlier could be, I'm not as ready as I thought I was for this conversation. Or, it seems like you might be more prepared for this conversation than I am. You might ask, if we could wave a magic wand and make this situation more as you hoped it would be, what would change? But you could follow up that conversation with, if those changes did come about that would improve the situation for you, how might it affect the satisfaction and hopes of the other people on our team? Or you might say, is there a way to blend together what you want and what others want in a way that will make it better for everyone? What I am suggesting is multiple ways to make sure that you can grow through the challenge and not let bitterness infect the relationship. Let's move on to the 6th. The 6th kind of phrase is called reconstructive phrases. This is when communications have broken down, the relationship or the team has to be rebuilt, that there's already a break. People have either stopped talking or all the conversation is negative. So how do you rebuild those conversations? Well, since the wounds in relationships vary in severity, sometimes it's a little bit like a mosquito bite. Sometimes it feels like a broken arm. So because there's different severity, you might use different phrases. But here are some reconstructive phrases. Number 1 is, I'm sorry. Now, pride can get in the way, but pride comes before a fall. So very rarely does pride help a relationship, if ever. So start with, I'm sorry. Even if you think the other person should apologize first, race to apologize. Number 2, I was or I am wrong. You see, some people are willing to admit they're sorry, but they're too prideful to admit they're wrong. And number 3, you might do a combination. Listen, I was wrong and I'm sorry. Or, I'm sorry and I was wrong. Now, another phrase is this, and it's very important. Listen carefully. I may be confused about all these issues, but I'm not confused how I feel about you. I love you and I respect you. Now, why would we say that? Because sometimes we know that people don't have the big picture. We know that they're wrong. They have a little bit of information, but not all the information, or they have information, but they've processed it incorrectly. They thought something that isn't true, but now they're basing their opinion of you or the team or whomever on that false information. Well, it's not going to work very good to just say to them most of the time, well, you're just wrong, or that's stupid, or how could anybody think that? Because that normally drives people to feel worse. But if you said to someone, okay, to be candid, to be open, remember not to be honest, but to be candid or open, I'm still a little confused how I feel about these issues. But I'm not confused how I feel about you. I love you and I respect you. These are very important rebuilding phrases. To commit to someone and say, you know what, maybe I don't have the big picture, but I want to know how you see my part in this. Or, although I know I'm not responsible for you, I want to be responsible to you. And finally, here's some phrases that are always important. I love you. Can you forgive me? I forgive you. I want a fresh start. I would like a better future with you. One of my friends said that he often, in marital counseling, helps couples say to one another, "This is a difficult chapter we've been going through, but it's not our whole story." I think that's a helpful phrase. The seventh and final of our phrases that make every relationship better are inspirational phrases. Now, these are the phrases that reach for the best in each other. These are the phrases that draw out our purest motives, our strongest engagement of heart, soul, mind, and strength. These are the phrases that say something like, "I believe in you," or "I still believe in you," or "You have so much to be proud of," "I admire you," or "You taught me so much when you did," and then fill in that blank. You see, these are the inspirational phrases. These are phrases that make people feel taller when they feel beat down, make people feel stronger when they feel incapable of a task. And as a leader, your job is to inspire people. When we take time to use these phrases, it makes every relationship better. So I'm going to look at the phrases one last time, and you make sure that you have your list complete. We have introductory phrases, compatibility phrases, connecting phrases, interdependency phrases, growing through the challenges phrases, reconstructing phrases, and finally, inspirational phrases. Jesus said that by our words, we either are acquitted or we're condemned. The Proverbs say that our words have the power of life and death, and we have to choose. Jesus said the words I use are spirit and they are life. The Apostle Paul said, make the most of every opportunity and always season your conversation with grace. Empathetic communication makes connections, but connections aren't just introductions. They include compatibility and connection, interdependence. They include making things right when they've kind of been hurt or wounded. It includes rebuilding, and it includes inspiring. Those are the kind of communication sensations that great leaders use. So to wrap up this communication series, this three-part series in our leadership series, communication that is patient, humble, and empathetic is sensational. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.